welcome back to Real and Raw. We're on episode number 2. We've made it to the second one, which is pretty awesome.
Yes.
And today we are going to start off with, basically this episode is going to just start at the base level of acknowledging the problems. So we are very aware of the piles of poo that scatter throughout life, and I think we've had discussions about this, how it's hard sometimes. You think you're the only one with that many piles of poo in your life.
Yeah.
And when you start talking to people, you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me, but also there are ways to help. So we're not kind of today going to focus too much on solutions, but it doesn't mean we're just being moaning myrtles. We just want to start off with simplifying, like, this is where people are at.
I think it's about relating to people,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, relating to others and saying we hear you.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, for sure. So I think you're the best one to start off with problems. I think personal, but I just think like parents, like, gosh.
It is. I mean, I was trying to think of a problem to say for this, and there are so many problems that you think, well, where do I start? Well, I think it's best to start at the beginning. So Riley was diagnosed when he was 3. I was completely oblivious before he was diagnosed. He's my first son, he's my only son, and I was in the bubble of, he's perfect, he's just a slower developing boy, there's nothing wrong with him, he's just lazy, hasn't got any siblings at home, he doesn't go to nursery, and I was very much on the back foot of, there's nothing wrong with him. And then when I realised that there was, my gosh, it was so lonely, because I thought I was the only one that felt like I did. We came to a point where we were in crisis. You know, he'd been diagnosed. We'd had, a little bit of help from, a speech and language therapist that came into he was in foundation level of school. And that was kind of the only support that I had. You know, I was referred to a service that was called Small Talk, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might have changed now. But it's like a local authority base, and they come out and they see you and they give you hints and tips on how to get your child talking and communicating. And that was kind of it. And there was nothing about, behaviours and coping in the community and all of those kind of things. Because at the time we didn't feel the need to want to medicate Riley for any reason. He was 3, I could scoop him up and walk off with him. I was just kind of left. And as he got a bit older, his behaviours got worse and he couldn't cope in certain situations. And looking back, I now know that he couldn't self-regulate. He was really overstimulated. We didn't know about the sensory processing disorder at the time. And we got to a point where we were in crisis. I was in crisis with him. The isolation was incredibly, incredibly difficult. The loneliness, I lost friends, certain family members, because I didn't know how to explain Riley, and they didn't know how to interact with him. It was just easier to withdraw. It was easier to not get the invite to the barbecue or not get the invite to the park, after school. And the isolation's really tough, and his behaviours were so extreme that I think I remember not leaving the house, apart from going to like nursery or school. I think I didn't leave the house to take him out into public for about 2 years. And that was really hard, really hard. He had really rigid behaviours that I didn't know what to do with. It was like walking on eggshells all the time. And I thought I was the only one that was coping or that wasn't coping. I thought I was the only one that was going through that. And I remember it being so bad that Riley's self-injurious. So he it's not half as bad anymore, but at the time he was so bad that he would bounce his head off a concrete floor. He'd run into a brick wall. He would hit himself so hard that he'd be bleeding. And he'd wipe the blood off and he'd carry on. And I was in such a state of disrepair that I didn't know how to help my son. And anywhere I turned, nobody could help me. So I went to CAMS, which is the children's mental health. I went everywhere, you know, and was trying to say, please, somebody help me, help my son. Because we'd not needed to see the paediatrician interim, because he wasn't medicated, we then had no paediatrician. So it was back to a waiting list referral from a GP to get back to a paediatrician. The wait list at the time was about 18 months. They were offering perhaps parenting courses in between, which, you know, I'm not saying anything against parenting courses, they can be great, but at the time when you're in crisis and you're saying, my child is injuring himself to the point where he is bleeding, a parenting course isn't going to help me right now. I need somebody to help me. So we ended up paying privately, which I was fortunate enough to be able to do at the time. I went and saw a private paediatrician and basically begged for his help. And I remember sitting in that doctor's surgery and he spent an hour with Riley, and he said that he was so sorry that I hadn't got any, you know, sort of medical professionals that were on board working with us at the time, because he was one of the most severe cases of non-verbal autism that he'd seen in a very long time. Sorry, I don't want to get emotional, but it was really hard to hear. Yeah. And he recommended that I came and see you, which was a saving grace.
I feel like we should have Kleenexes.
I know. Yeah. But he recommended that we came to see you, and at the time, you know, I wasn't even thinking about what kind of therapy it would be, or, you know, was I skeptical about equine therapy and, you know, animal assisted learning or anything like that. I didn't care, because I was desperate. I was desperate to help my son. And I remember coming to you on that first day and saying, please help me. We might have to take over. But I think that...
And then boot camp started. Because I was like, right, let me get to work.
But the moral to that story, I think, is to just relate to people that I know that are going to be watching this, that are going to be in the pits of despair, that don't know where to turn, that you're not on your own.
No.
There are people out there that are feeling the same as you. And I remember going through that time, and I found a lady that I still follow to this day on Facebook, and I watched one of her stories, and it said on there that once you find your community, you won't feel alone anymore. Mm-hmm. So that was what I did.
Yeah.
I really tried to find my community, and now I'm trying to build a community for others with this and with other little projects that we've got going on, to try and build that community, because it's really rough out there sometimes.
And what's really, like, if I piggyback off that, important to highlight that very quickly your world shrinks to a house and then shrinks to a room.
Absolutely.
And to try and get back out of that room, get back out of that house, needs support. It needs help. Public, private, friends, family, whatever format that is. Mm-hmm. But it goes down in seconds. And takes months to years to come back out again.
Absolutely.
So for
because
those,
everything goes, you know, your confidence goes, you know, your self-esteem goes. You don't know if you're doing it right. You haven't got a clue. You know, the judgment from society is a real one. It really puts you off trying to push out of those comfort zones. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right, it does. It goes down so quickly, and it's not even, I don't think people even do it on purpose.
No, not at all. It's sheer for their own anxieties. So I was speaking to somebody who's a wheelchair user, and they said, I fully appreciate people just don't know if it's okay to talk to me.
Absolutely.
And unless I instigate the conversation, like, they don't know that I want to be talking to, and all these different anxieties that are around it.
Yeah.
Because we're very fortunate that this is our world, so this is normalized.
Yeah.
But for those who aren't part of this world, it's like me, I don't know, going to a foreign country and then trying to work and fit into their cultures. It will feel a bit uncomfortable and distorted to begin with.
Well, it's like the poem that was written, Welcome to Holland. And I think maybe we'll tag that for people to be able to read, because that's really kind of poignant, because that's exactly what it is like. So you know, you get pregnant and you're having this baby and you plan everything and it's all perfect, and you have these visions and, you know, things that you want to do. And, you know, for me it was, you know, I want to enjoy all of these experiences with Riley, and before he goes to nursery I want him to be able to count to 10, and, you know, I'm really going to work with him so he's really smart and he can read and all of these things. And then, you know, your baby, and that's you know, going to Paris. So you've prepared for Paris, you've packed for Paris, you've got your travel guide or wherever it may be, you know, and then you get on the plane and you're all ready and you've learnt the language, and you get there and your baby comes, and, you know, life starts to happen, and you get off the plane and you realise that you're actually not in the place that you thought you were going to be, and you're now in Holland. And you had no idea that that's where you were going. You're not prepared, you've packed the wrong clothes, you've learnt the wrong language, you don't know anybody. But this is where you are now, and, you know, that's just what you've got to do. And I think the whole journey is about learning to appreciate the beautiful things in Holland, because I, like you just said, had no experience of this world whatsoever, have no, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have no members of my family that are, you know, have any kind of disabilities in any way, don't have any speech and language impairments, nothing like that. You know, I wasn't prepared, I had no idea. So then I'd ended up in this foreign place that I knew nothing about.
And with a lot of problems to fix very quickly.
Yeah, and problems that you don't even, at the time, you don't even see them as problems. You know, and if I'd have dealt with some things earlier than I did, it would have been, you know, perhaps a slightly different story, but I didn't know.
No.
Have no idea.
And also, people don't know what should be expected, what shouldn't be expected, what's okay, what do you need to steer, what do you need to parent, which bits are actually allowed to grow, all these different things.
Which bits of behaviour, which bits are, you know, because I couldn't define between what was autism and what wasn't. You know, and some things weren't autism.
No, he has flair. He definitely has flair.
You know, and I always say he'd be that kid at school, if he was verbal, he would be the kid at school going, Miss, I can't do it. It's my autism. I need to go outside. You know, he would be that kid. And everything comes under the autism umbrella, or whatever, you know, disability it may be. And it's about being able to navigate the differences. And I didn't know. I was not speaking that language.
Well, I remember that conversation with you going that you have two children in one body. You have the child with additional needs, and then you have the child. And actually, your first parenting lesson is to differentiate in that moment very quickly which one, because the approaches are so different.
Oh, absolutely.
And where it's just like, pick your battles, because actually sometimes the outcome of pursuing that isn't correct, because actually it's under a completely different umbrella.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the child is different as well. You know, when Riley's in a heightened state of meltdown, I couldn't guide him like I would if he wasn't, because his brain isn't able to receive information. No. You know,
and it does make me chuckle at times that when they're gone and you just see that rocket take off and you're like, okay, everyone put tin hats on.
Yeah,
and everyone's first thing is just to kind of talk them through it, and I'm just like,
you might as well talk to that tree.
Well, you just like, they're up there, like, you've got to wait till they come down, buddy. Like, just wait. And it's that waiting though, but like you say, it's that seeing something unfold and feeling that helpless, but then learning actually the most help you're doing is holding that space of support that non-verbally, ready to catch that rocket and go, okay.
And knowing that that's enough.
It is enough.
You know, knowing that that's enough. You don't have to be doing anything sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to be there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think...
waiting in the wilderness is what they call it.
And I think when we talk about problems and what's the biggest problem, I think that is the very first problem that I encountered was the not knowing.
Yeah.
And the not having anywhere to go, and the not being able to, you know, accrue the knowledge of what to do.
But right, like you said, I think from my perspective as well, obviously now things have been more publicized, there's a lot more organizations for support, but it's, if you're in the right place ready to receive the information in the format it's being given.
Yeah, I mean, I was not in the right place.
Because if you yourself is in a place of like heightened, somebody just passing you a video or talking through some scriptures, it's not going to touch you until somebody literally takes hold of your hand and goes, just stop. And then you go, oh, who are you? And you're like, hi, I've been here for the past hour. I was just waiting.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's really, I mean, I've been in places where I remember the first time I heard the word autism, and it was a health, what are they called? Like a health visitor, that's it. So it was a health visitor, came to do his 2.5-year check, and she was a bit late for whatever reason. There's always a backlog. Anyway, she came into the house, and within 10 minutes she said to me, you do know he's autistic, don't you? I threw her out. I threw her out, honestly. I swear to God, as true as I am sitting here, I threw her out of my house.
Ah, brilliant.
I was not ready to hear that.
Here, just shut the door on that one. We'll have that conversation later.
Yeah,
Oh, brilliant.
I did. And
That was
then years
brilliant.
later, I thought to myself, God, that poor health visitor. I was brutal to her.
Well,
You know,
yeah.
you're not qualified. How do you don't even know? Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Get out of my house right now.
Yeah.
Because I was not ready to receive that information.
Yeah.
It wasn't until really we reached that crisis and I came to you and was begging for help that I would have listened to anything.
Yeah.
I'm able. Yeah. So I think, yeah, huge problem that was for me, and I think it's for many.
And you know what, like something, so we've been playing with some stuff here, and something that's been really fascinating to see is some of the neurological development, it's always starting at that 3 to 4 year.
Yeah.
When those diagnoses come in, it's like families just stop functioning,
Oh yeah.
and the development and the growth and the lessons stop, and
Everything gets wrapped in
pauses.
cotton wool.
And actually it's those fundamental years, like we all know early intervention is key, but it's those fundamental years to support, to keep them moving forwards, that then has this knock-on effect as they get older, that they're not left behind as much.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember for the first 2 years of school, so reception in year 1, it was actually written in Riley's Get to Know Me, you know, classroom passport, that you couldn't use the word no in a
I
conversation
remember
with him.
that.
Remember?
What did I say?
And I told everyone, you can't say no to him. I was so guilty of wrapping everything in cotton wool and just making it autism proof, you know, Riley proof. We don't rock the boat, we don't, you know, we accommodate wherever possible if we can, and you know, we don't say no. And it's crazy when I think about it, because that's not life. It isn't life. But I did that typical close the doors, the, you know, the barricades came down, the shutters came down, and I was in pure protection mode.
And that's it, that's the key, it's that protection mode, knowing that. So I think that's a really key first problem.
Gosh,
to
I've learned so much over the years.
Just acknowledge that you can be in crisis and you can be in protection mode. And that is,
and you can be lost, and you can be lonely, and you can be isolated,
and you can just go, this is really pants. I just don't think people say that enough. Like, it's okay to say today is just rubbish, because actually it's from that baseline of acknowledgement that then you can go, okay, I've acknowledged how I'm feeling, now I can make progress moving forwards.
Yeah, so I think just acknowledging sometimes that it's just rubbish, and also from a parent's perspective, you get that sense of guilt. You can't say it's rubbish. You know, I'm blessed with a child. He's healthy. You know, there are many people out there that have very poorly children or that can't have children, and how guilty do I feel for saying, you know what, this is really hard. But it's okay to say that, because sometimes it really is. And you know what, sometimes it's really great. And over the years, I think that I can pass to other people that, yes, I've had times where I have sat in that hole and thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. You know, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what I'm doing. But I've also sat in moments that have been so beautiful and such big achievements that there is hope, even when you think that it's never going to get better.
Now, can I share a story about one of those hope moments?
Yes.
Is buckles.
Oh gosh,
my goodness. What was it, 2 years?
No, I think it's longer. I think it's like 3.
Okay, just helping understand. So on our saddle pads there's buckles. I am not here to tidy up after people. I have plenty of tidying up to do, so children learn how to tidy up after themselves. Part of that is undoing the saddle and putting it away. Well, could we just pull that strap up to unhook that buckle? No, we'd get so far and then it just flopped. Now, it was a choice of flop, not for any dexterity reasons, but also it was a lack of understanding of how hard to pull, how high to pull, all these different developmental factors.
It took a long time to teach him.
Every time we practiced the buckles hand over hand and graded it and all those, and the first day he just went up and he just undid the buckles. Obviously we can't celebrate very big because then that would be distracting, but inside, my goodness, I was like having tea, packets of biscuits, the party poppers were going
off. The fireworks were going, weren't they? You know,
so,
it was those very simple things. And I think, if I remember rightly that day, I think he'd had a particularly tricky session.
I'm remembering that he was sassed.
He was pretty pissed.
Yeah, he was.
You know, he'd achieved a lot. You know, it had taken some conversations, but he'd achieved a lot, and we were out of brownie points. He'd had enough. I've had enough. I want to finish today, and that is it. I'm getting off and I'm taking this saddle off, and that's that. And we were like, yes, yes, just big yes. He's like, I will show you that I am finished. And I was like, show away. Absolutely show away. But those small moments of like, oh my God, we've achieved it, we've done it.
But it should be those small moments we celebrate. And that's the beauty of these children and this experience is I love the reality checks they give.
They give you a stark reality check.
Just come back, stop following down pathways that aren't authentic and true, and come back to the truth and stuff.
The beauty in the small moments. And there is a lot of beauty, you know. If you spend long enough in this world, you'll see so much more beauty in just the really small things, and it really grounds you as a person to really sit back and evaluate what is important, what's not important. You know, the little wins are really mega. And I think that's probably one of my biggest messages to people is, yes, it can be really very dark and very tough, but it can also be very, very beautiful.
Agreed. 100%
and
agreed.
I think if we weren't in this, you know, part of this world, gosh, the beauty I'd have missed out on.
For sure.
You know, you follow that train of society and you don't even think about those things.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, totally.
Crazy.
Cool. Great one to start with.
Yeah. So what about the next ones?
Right, I'll jump on one.
Go on.
So let's go to the professional side. And like I say, when I'm going to put the small print in, just
you're going to have to.
I am, because I just don't want the keyboard warriors. as a professional, I'm in a unique setting. This is, I've been very fortunate that I could keep my journey going of curiosity. So I do appreciate this isn't for all, nor is this generalizing for all professionals.
No.
But I think one of my biggest problems is when you guys turn up and we're in that place of crisis, I need to just be able to get on with my job.
And we need you to.
Yeah. And the system doesn't facilitate that. The system is constantly pulling me away from just getting on and doing my job.
Yeah.
And I can see you guys in cry. I know how to get you to a place of stability. And it's about being able to say to the system, like, oh, I recognize that, but that is not appropriate right now.
It's like I was saying before, being at crisis and being offered a parenting course.
Yeah.
It's not going to help me right now.
No.
And that's what you need to do.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the constant balance that I'm in, is respecting that there is protocols and procedures and documentation and all that other stuff and the meetings and all that other stuff. But that takes hours and hours of time. And they're hours and hours away from doing a job.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I've spoken to, we became health professionals because we wanted to do the job in order to help people progress on their journey. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I want to be doing it. And
that must be
but
so
also
frustrating.
on the flip side, like, there's another part of me that I'm just like, there's so much that I wish I'd captured, because for research purposes, there's so much that's been evidenced, that has been evidenced, but not in a way that could be then used for future. So
Yeah.
like, there's this constant dance between what needs to be done now in order to stabilize and keep people safe versus the progression of the profession.
Yeah.
But it is really frustrating, because I can be sat, and it's really important for me to talk to other professionals and other people and hear their viewpoints, because I learn so much from them. But there's times that I just need to get in the field and just get everybody's central nervous systems to a place where people are functioning.
And it's about being practical like that, isn't it? You know, when you've got the knowledge to be able to look at a certain situation or a person and know that you can't talk about it right now because they can't hear you.
No, that's it. That's it. Absolutely.
And you know what to do to help them hear you.
Yeah.
But you've got to jump through all these hoops before you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine how frustrating that must be for you.
Yeah. And like, you're sat on your hands going, I know exactly who you need to speak to. I know exactly who's got the skill set that could fix this in 24 hours, but I can't get you there.
And that, as a parent, that breaks my heart.
So we all know we're on Titanic, and we're all steering this ship that's slowly sinking, but we're also as helpless in some regards.
Yeah.
Because it's not until we change on the base level. So we always think that it's top down, and I'm learning more and more that it's bottom up. It's how we do our day-to-day work and how we choose to do our day-to-day work, which sets the standards of expectations.
Yeah.
Of going like, and rightly so, you guys are like, well, we need to be able to evidence this, we need to be able to do that. And I'm saying, well, what's the higher priority right now?
Yeah.
And at times it's like, the higher priority is actually that evidence, because we need to open that door. Fine, no problem. I will allocate my time to that. But other times you'll show up and go, I've just had a heck of a week.
Yeah.
And I just need some form of sanity bringing back in. And I'll go, okay, well, I'll have to just sidestep from that to this. And that's where the relational side comes in. That's, I think, is really important. So it's a dual conversation and outcome of which outcome do you want me to reach first.
Exactly. Like when I first came to you, my one and only please help me with was, he was bleeding.
Yeah.
He was hurting himself so badly that I was scared of what he could do to himself.
Yeah.
And he didn't feel it at the time, and that was what needed dealing with. Nothing else, just deal with this, help me deal with this, and then we can look at the whole picture.
Yeah. And actually, through me listening to that and going, okay, I can see a ton of other things that I need to get done, but I will hear you and I will deal with that, brought you off survival mode. So then I could sit down afterwards and go, okay, this is how this was created.
Yeah.
And this is what we could do next time to help that creation either slow down or not be created at all, depending on where he was at.
Yeah, of course. And also, this is how we can help to teach him how to navigate himself, how to understand himself better, so it doesn't lead to that.
And the first thing was by saying no. I had to put that in. I just had to.
Do you know what though? You're dead right. You are dead right. And to be fair,
and what we said was like, no, thank you. He did about 3 times. I remember on red, and I was like, no, thank you. And he went, all right then, and just carried on riding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And that's a classic example of mistakes that you make and the failures of I wrapped him in so much cotton wool that he didn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of times I saw your expression of like, oh boy, what's she doing with him?
Yeah. Do you know
what? I'll be fine.
I've actually got, from those early days, I've actually got a lot of video documentation that we can evidence.
That's why I was like, oh, it'll be fine. Let's just see what happens if he rides by himself. What? I was like, well, we'll just see.
Do you remember when he fell off?
I did.
I've got that on video.
Yeah.
That was great.
It really was. Because he just got back up and then got back on.
I was like, what happened? And then that's what happens when I do that.
Yeah, and got back on the horse, sat on her.
The lesson of consequence.
Yeah, and then he just rode for the rest of the session, and he's never been afraid of falling. He's never been afraid of the horses.
I don't think he's ever fell off since.
No, and because his seat's amazing. Anytime he like slightly comes off, he's like, whoa, I know that lesson. But no. Obviously, and it was I'll put it in context. It was a fall from like the slowest walk a horse could do.
Oh, it was not even a fall.
No, it was a slide, slide of consequence. But it's allowing those spaces and those opportunities of learning. So yeah, cool. Okay, back to you. Next parent problem.
Oh, the dreaded. Okay, I've got a teenager now.
Yay!
Got a teenager.
Whoop whoop hormones.
Oh. Yeah, hormones. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen Inside Out 2. You told me to watch it.
Oh my gosh,
if you haven't seen it and you've got a teenager that's going into hormones, go and watch it. But there's a big red button that says hormones, puberty, hormones, and it is like somebody that he's turned 13 and someone's gone
and literally everywhere gets cleared out, reconstruction.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all new buttons.
Yeah, all different kid. I mean, it's hormones and puberty is my biggest problem right now.
Yeah, it's a journey, that one.
A journey.
And just there's no words to describe to people to prepare them for this. They just go, oh, teenagers, they're a bit grumpy. I'm like, no. Honestly, you want to get as much of your stuff done before that red button goes.
You think that hormones are your typical teenager slamming the bedroom door saying, I hate you. I wish it was that simple.
Yeah, no. Not a chance.
Everything is so different.
Yeah.
I haven't got a clue what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm navigating it.
Yeah, no. But also, this is the great thing. It's like playing Jekyll and Hyde. Because they like walk in 1 minute and they're fine, and then they get a hormone hit and they walk in and you're just like, whoa, who are you?
Exactly. 1 minute, he wants to sit on my knee and have tickles, and he's all loving on me and giving me a kiss and laughing, and then he'll walk out of the room, walk back in and throw a shoe at me.
You breathed wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole different ball game. So I'm really learning so much about that at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem, and I think that a lot of other parents will face as well. And you know, especially when you have a child like Riley that is I don't know how to put this, that is clinically, chronologically a lot younger than his years.
Yeah, we're on about 4 to 5 years developmentally now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's the child, and this is what I struggle to explain to people, that's the child that I see.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at Riley, I don't see a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I see a 4 to 5 year old,
Mm-hmm.
overgrown, you know, small child that he's almost as tall as me. He wants to come and sit on my knee and play Humpty Dumpty, and we have tickles and we read books, and it's not something that you would ever envisage yourself doing with a typical teenager.
No.
So I don't look at him and expect for 1 minute that we're going to get hormones and puberty and hair growing in the wrong place and things doing the wrong things, and because I just don't see him like that, and I wasn't prepared.
No. And actually that pulls up kind of a really interesting concept that one of my struggles with is helping parents to see their child in that new format. Because actually, yes, which one's higher priority, and it changes day by day. Actually you need to deal with a teenager and their hormones now versus the developmental work. Now on the good stabilized hormone times, we're like going through the development, like push as much as we can and he can tolerate. But as soon as those hormone hits, it's like stop. It's like red light, green light.
It's like being in Squid Game.
And then it's like go, and then it's like stop, let's go. And like each time we try and creep a bit further so the hormones like stabilize a bit. But also it's that kind of, the best one is like I've had the best epic puberty conversations with teenagers, but obviously when it's neurodivergent, you have a whole new level of questioning, exploration, and parents are like, how much should they know? And actually they should know as much as possible, because they are so much more inquisitive and aware,
and they're vulnerable. They're so vulnerable. You know, I mean, I've got Riley into such a place at the moment now, you know, where I know that 100% of his time he's protected. But he is so vulnerable that if he was still going to school and things like that, you know, I'd be having to put even more emphasis on, you know, talking to him about that, because he doesn't know what's not appropriate.
No.
You know, and even though I tell him it's not appropriate, you know, he's so innocent. Because he's chronologically so young. That, God, he'd be a paedophile's dream. I'm allowed to say that.
Because it's true. It really is. But also it's not even, it's the vulnerabilities come in so many different ways that I think it's a case of how, one of my key things that was brought to my attention just through dealing with some situations with people is, how do people ask for help? If they were in a sticky situation, what would they do, and how would they do it that they'd actually asked for help because they were either concerned or unsure about something, and also them doing something. Like they might inappropriately go up to a person and squeeze or
Riley would kiss strangers.
And they wouldn't realize that it's not a place, they're too old for that to be okay. And
I think that's the key. I think that's the key when it comes to teenage. And this is what I've noticed a lot with Riley when he was little and he was going over to people, you know, and he would try and kiss. He'd got a thing about bald heads. So if there was a man sat down anywhere that got a bald head, he'd go and try and kiss them on the head. And when they're 4 and 5, you know, it's funny.
Cute.
It's funny. When they're 13 and 5'2", it's not funny anymore.
No.
And it's not cute.
But it's the same, like, if we put it to an even simpler one, like, even if somebody has tactile defensiveness and different things, like, it's really important for them as soon as possible to learn to tolerate to wear pants. Because if you've got a 35-year-old that who's having people come in and support them, they need pants on.
And that's
it's
where
respectful
we're at
for
the
other
moment.
people.
Sorry, I just had to pause break to put a hoodie on because I was a little bit chilly.
That's fine. We'll explain later why we're in a field. We've got to do that.
I was saying, we were talking about the hormones and pants, exactly. Yep. So that's exactly where we're at the moment. Yep. So with Riley having sensory processing disorder, he always struggled as a toddler and a young child to keep clothes on. He still struggles with that. We've worked for years on keeping clothes on in public, which thankfully, I mean, he's 13 and we do keep clothes on 100% of the time in public.
Perfect.
There have been times where I have turned around in the play centre when he was 5 and 6 and he would be running across the bridge starkers.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore, which is great.
Yeah.
But we are learning at the moment about wearing pants in the home.
Yes.
Because home was always his safe space to be him, to be who he was. And it's now having that understanding, or trying to teach him that understanding of, you know, you are getting older now and you do need to wear pants at home. And if pants is the only thing you wear,
it's fine. It's just something.
Fine.
Yeah.
But it is something, because he has a PA that comes in, you know, his grandparents visit, we have friends over sometimes.
Yeah.
And for his dignity more than anything. Yeah. That it's not okay for him to be 13 and going through puberty and not wearing pants.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a pickle. I have to keep a stack of pants downstairs because you can guarantee every time he goes upstairs to his room, because that's where he's allowed to be free.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be free, you need to be in your room, in your safe space.
Yeah.
And every time he comes downstairs, he'll not have them on. And now he can put them on.
Yeah.
He can. We've learnt that.
Yeah.
But he won't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that we're really working on, because looking at when he's 15 and 20 and 30, it's not going to be acceptable or dignified for him to be walking around with no pants.
Yep. And that kind of slides me really nicely onto the next challenge for me as a professional, is the culture around helping parents to see the future, to plan for the future, but also know that they're a really active part in the future and in this child's development.
I never gave that a thought.
So, like, I remember that conversation with you as we were talking about pants, and you're like, well, and I remember it like being, okay, it's okay, it's okay. And I was just like, now forward this to a 35-year-old fully grown man. And you went, oh, I was like, and that's the difference. Like, when you're with them all day, every day, it's very much like,
it's the norm.
Just let me get through 24 hours now.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes you are at a point where you are like, I just need to get through.
Yeah, for sure.
And if that means you don't wear pants at home, then whatever.
Yeah, I'll pick my battle today. This is not one of them.
Exactly.
But it's like those then going, okay, every behavior they're choosing, how would this look like as a 35-year-old? Because I'm always very conscious, and I work in the back of my in the back of my head. I'm like, okay, what if suddenly something really unfortunate happens and all his normal support network went away? Would he be able to ask for help? Would he be able to communicate his needs? Would he be able to fulfill any needs himself? And also, how does he reteach people how to help him?
Yeah.
And it's those scenarios that hopefully will never happen, but in my career,
you just never know.
There have been many times a car door is opened and somebody's told me a story, and I'm like,
wow,
right, we have some very quick work to do. And it's kind of made me think a bit more about actually how much can I prepare you for those things without it being triggering, but also for the greater good of the individual anyway.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned from Riley about those little behaviours, like not wearing pants, is that Riley in particular, he manifests a behaviour. If something becomes an okay behaviour, that will manifest in him, that will embed in him. And to unpick that, to undo that, is actually very difficult.
Yeah.
So if I'd have thought back when he was younger about this, you know, I should have started years ago. Yeah. But I didn't, because I thought, oh, it's just a baby.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't, I wasn't future proofing.
Yeah. Well, one of mine is hand holding.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's one of my things. So one thing I'm really passionate about is not going to a child's funeral because of an accident.
Yeah.
But I meet so many that are flight children.
Oh, Riley was an eloper, massive.
And people think that it's okay to flight. Now, we will in later episodes go on into this a bit more, but actually in my office, I don't have doors to close.
No.
I don't have, like, there is, like, if you go for good, and you go when it's search and rescue kind of standards. So flight isn't an option here.
No.
So even to flight from the car to the barn is already a big thing for me.
Of course.
Because I'm like, well, if you do it there, where else would you do it?
Absolutely.
So, but that first conversation of everybody slowing down to say, actually, before we get too excited and go to the barn, can you go around, find your parent and hold their hand, or transition from one place to the other and hold a parent's hand?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he outgrows it and never uses it again, but it's really handy for those really sticky, busy situations to have in your back pocket, where you go, hand please, and they feel safe, comfortable, and understand that it's safe and comfortable to hold somebody's hand and then help navigate them through that sticky thing.
Yeah, and we've worked on hand holding for years.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember crying when I got a photograph from school and the very first time he'd held his teacher's hand going out for a walk on the road.
Yeah.
You know, and he doesn't particularly like doing it because he's a big boy now and he can walk by himself, but for many years he was an eloper, he was a runner, and I couldn't keep him safe. It was one of the reasons why I didn't go out a lot for that 2-year period, because I couldn't keep him safe. He wouldn't hold my hand, he wouldn't be restrained in any way, he didn't want to be in a pushchair, he didn't want to wear reins. You know, none of that was a really big problem.
Yeah, I know, but it's such an easy one to fix.
Yeah, but again, you don't think about it.
No.
When you can pick them up and walk off with them.
Yeah, and this
you don't think about it.
No, absolutely. And that's like, this is part of like the culture and the helping families. Like, a lot of work that families have to do is preparation work, which is like you're preparing for 10 years from now.
Yeah, and I think everything I look at now is you know, based around that theory.
Yeah, it's like thinking, okay, what's it going to look like as an adult? What's this going to look like as a 30-year-old? What's this going to look like as a 40-year-old? What do they need to be able to do, say, have in order for that to be as best function as possible? Yeah. So
but I needed someone to point that out to me. I needed someone to say, what is this going to look like?
Yeah.
You know, if you can't learn how to do this now, what might happen in the future? Because you don't think about it. So thank you for that.
Well,
you really opened my eyes. You did really open my eyes.
I just had the brutally honest country conversations going, well, I know you're feeling like you just want to keep him in that space, but he's getting pretty tall now.
Yeah, and you know, soon you're not going to be able to force him to hold your hand. No. If you haven't taught him how to do it, you're not going to be able to force him.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, and I'm really grateful because we go on a lot of adventures, and you know.
Well, I think the best one was then when you sent photos of you at Formula One or something. Yeah, and it's just like, oh, and you're like, there was busy, there was crowds. He just held my hand. We walked through, and you think there. So, but also like, from your guys' perspective as parents, there's nobody saying these are the really key skills.
No.
Because it's too much like, well, actually you just need to be able to do this, this and this. And when you look at the functionability later on, you're like, well, actually, is that really the bit we need to focus on? Yeah. And actually right now, these are the key things that will become really useful when they're teenagers and adults.
Do you know what I think you should do? I think
a job list.
I think you should write a little manual.
A manual
of these are the key things you must achieve.
Yeah, okay.
Or you must work on, and you'll thank me for it later.
Yeah. Well, how about I add them to the development sheets?
Perfect.
Because I haven't put hand holding on there, but it is one that's key.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep brainstorming that and adding to it. But yeah, I agree.
think that's it.
We need a checklist. Cool. So I think we've covered quite a lot.
We have.
The only thing we will talk about is very briefly why we're in a field.
Why are we in a field?
Why are we in a field?
Because rain or shine, we will be in a field.
Because it's probably the only place I will sit long enough for.
Yes.
And also a bit of, this is the office. This is where learning takes place.
Yeah.
And actually, over a decade now of doing this, the best lessons have been learned outdoors.
Yeah.
And
I think it's the best space to connect.
Yeah. And it's neutral. And we're with a sister, Mother Nature. She's just grand, sassy, but grand. And she's a great teacher. And
I think she's very underestimated.
She is, but she gets us on the right track whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Like the coat situation.
Oh gosh, for years they wouldn't wear a coat, would they?
No. But then give them a cold day, and suddenly they're like, "I've got purpose for wearing a coat."
Yeah. And
it's like, yeah, that's why we wear a coat. And now steps out the car, first thing that goes on, coat. In cold weather, not in hot weather.
Yeah.
So that's why we're outdoors.
Because this is Naomi's beautiful office.
This is my office. Yeah.
It is.
On days like this, it's all right.
Yeah.
When it's an east wind and peeing it down with rain,
we might retreat to the barn on those days.
We might just do that.
Maybe.
Yeah, might have hot chocolates as well.
If you're feeling kind.
Yeah, don't know.
Yeah.
Might just layer up.
So that is why you will hear cows and sheep and tractors, because this is a working farm.
Yeah, we're real life. And that was part of the reason, is to connect people. Well, when people don't know where milk comes from and where a steak comes from, that was part of my ethos to go, well, this Betsy here will be your steak.
Yeah. And we will show you some of them next time when they're not down feeding.
Yeah.
And also, this is where the real stars of your show kind of live.
I needed an episode to settle in before I got like Scrumpy Jack chaos descending. But yeah,
the real stars of the show.
We'll introduce those later. But so the next episode, I think we've agreed that we're going to look at the whole grieving for a loss of life that we thought.
Yeah, I think, again, just connecting with people and really showing what is really real and what is really raw.
Yeah.
About that, because I don't care what anybody says, and there will be people that will probably type away, you can't say that, you've got a living child, X, Y and Z, and that's fine, that's okay, that's your opinion. But there is without a doubt a period of grief that you go through when you land in Holland and you'd packed for Paris.
Yeah, and I'd kind of like buddy up with that with regards to, from a professional standpoint, we have obviously best practice that we're always striving for, but reality and best practice are two railroad tracks that are working alongside. But there are times that I've shown up to work and I've got 253 messages.
Wow.
And that's my reality.
Wow.
So I think to help a conversation around about an appreciation that parents are doing their best and professionals are doing their best, but if we work together more as a team, how together we could help each other.
I
think,
and I really hope that other professionals, start to tap into this and start to see this and start to really evaluate the possibility of building relationships. because I would love to have the same relationship that I have with you, with other professionals that have been involved with Riley, and I do with some. You know, some have been fantastic, some have been not so great. You know.
Yeah, and I think for me as professionals, it's giving them an opportunity to start a conversation that it's our day-to-day interactions that will change, that will get Titanic from sinking. It's going to come from us, and how we deliver, our expectations, and how we do stuff that will cause a change, rather than us waiting for the next DSM protocols, nice guidelines, all that other I know, Patch, I know.
It's like, don't talk about nice guidelines.
Don't do it. Don't talk about the paperwork. I'm sorry, Patch. I'm sorry. But yeah, how we can use those as a platform for improving things, but the change comes from us, not the other way around. Yeah. Cool.
Brilliant.
Right. Well, we will see you soon.
Stop talking.
We will. I think we've done good enough, but we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Thanks.